um, these days and every day. And we really appreciate you being here for us today. It's all yours.
Thank you so much, Rafi, and thank you, Victoria, for putting this event together. As Rafi mentioned, I'm with the Western region of the U.S. Chamber. I cover 5 states. I cover California, Nevada, Arizona, Utah, and Hawaii. But I'm very pleased to be here with you because I live in Glendale, so I love helping my local community out. I'm in Montrose all the time, so I appreciate being here with all of you. I'm going to go through the CARES Act today. And kind of dive into the various programs that are available for small businesses to take advantage of during this very, very challenging time. I know so many businesses are struggling right now. I do this call 2 or 3 times a day with chambers around the country, whether it's Nevada or Utah or Hawaii. And I'm hearing the same thing from everybody, that there's a lot of pain there. But at the same time, the federal government realizes that we're in this situation through no fault of the business owners. We're not here because of the fault of the employees. This is unfortunately as a result of this COVID virus that's happening right now. And we're forced to shut down because the governments, whether it's the federal, state, or local level, are telling us to close up shop right now. And so as a result of that, the federal government has taken significant action to help small businesses. And one way they've done that is through the passage of the CARE Act, which was signed into law two weeks ago today, and it started being implemented about a week ago today. And it does a number of things. It helps businesses of all sizes, large, medium, and small, as well as individuals. And I'm going to first kind of dive into how this will help individuals, and then I'll talk about primarily small businesses. Whenever I do these calls, I don't typically have small businesses involved that are greater than 500 employees. So through my presentation, you'll notice I'm just kind of go past the part of the larger employees. So I'm going to start sharing my screen right now to dive into my presentation. All right. So as I mentioned, the CARES Act passed a couple weeks ago today. It was a monumental task because typically, as you're all aware, if you follow the news at all, things in Washington move extremely slowly. But Republicans and Democrats came together and passed this $2 trillion package within lightning time, within a couple of weeks. It was actually signed on the same day that the House of Representatives passed it, so it was a top priority for both parties. It's a $2 trillion package, and it's phase 3 of these coronavirus stimulus package bills that were recently implemented. Now, on the individual level, what a lot of individuals in our country will be receiving is a stimulus check. And when I say a check, it's not going to be a physical check. It'll most likely, in most cases, be deposited directly into your bank account. It'll be the bank account that you typically file with the IRS. So if the IRS does not have your deposit information, please check that to make sure that they have your most up-to-date banking information. Because like I said, most Americans will receive a stimulus check. It will be in the amount of $1,200 per individual and $2,400 for a joint married couple who file together, and then $500 for each child in a household. Now, those who receive up to $75,000 who file individually and up to $150,000 as a couple will receive the full amount, either $1,200 or $2,400. Above that, if you get to $75,000 to $100,000, or if you get to $150,000 to $200,000, your check starts to phase out. So if you're making as an individual $80,000, $90,000, $95,000, you won't receive that full $1,200. What's important also is that if you make above $100,000, about $100,000 individually, or about $200,000 as a couple, you will not receive any check at all. On the individual level, in addition to the stimulus checks, they've also expanded unemployment benefits for those who have been affected by the coronavirus. Typically, there are a bunch of hoops that you have to go through. There are delays that you have to wait for to get your unemployment verified and accepted. However, in this case, they waived a bunch of those if you somehow find yourself unemployed as a result of coronavirus. Also, in addition to the typical unemployment check, the federal government will be adding $600 a week on top of that. So I believe the cap for unemployment in California is $450, but with the combination of the $600 from the federal government, you're eligible to receive a little over $1,000 a week in unemployment benefits. The important part here is that as soon as your employer calls you back to work, you must take the job back. You can get unemployment as long as your employer is shut down, but the minute the public health officials or the local, state, federal government tells us we can go back to work, then you're mandated to go back and you would stop receiving those unemployment benefits. In the same way, you also can't just quit your job and get unemployment, right? You have to still abide by the labor laws, which says that the only way you can get the unemployment is if you're laid off. Another important part about this is that the benefits are provided at the state level. I know there's some federal money involved, but those who seek to apply for unemployment need to also do that at the state level. While I will be focusing on the federal government, I work at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, which is based in Washington, so we deal with federal legislation. But all the unemployment would be filed at the state. And from what I've been hearing from doing a lot of these calls is that the state right now is just slammed with these unemployment applications. So you'll just have to be a little bit patient in getting it back. I've also gotten a little tip. They say, do not call the unemployment office, file everything online because their phone lines are really, really backed up. So in addition, so that's all on the individual side. In addition to what that CARES Act does for individuals, there are also major provisions in there for employers. And this is an overview, but I'll go into a little more detail on them. So all employers are eligible for some tax changes. They're also eligible for an employee retention credit. The larger employers, like I said, I'm probably not going to spend too much time on this, but they're eligible for loans, loan guarantees, Federal Reserve credit facilities. And then for small businesses, self-employed, independent contractors, and nonprofits, you're eligible for the Paycheck Protection Program, which is a brand new program. I'll be talking about that. These SBA economic injury disaster loans, or otherwise known as EIDL loans, and then paid sick leave and FMLA leave. And these were passed in phase 2 of the stimulus bills, but I'll talk about those as well. So when I mentioned that the payroll taxes, on the payroll tax front, there will be potentially a delay of payment of employer payroll taxes between now and January 1st, 2021. So typically you have to pay for these payroll taxes immediately. But what they're saying is for the employer portion of the payroll taxes, half of it could be delayed until December 31st, 2021. And then the other half would be delayed until December 31st, 2022. So they're really trying to help businesses with their liquidity right now. An important part about these, the forbearance for the payroll taxes is that if you opt to take this benefit, you would not be eligible for the payroll protection program, which is what I'm going to talk about also. So for the tax changes, you're also eligible to carry back your net operating losses for 2018, 2019, and 2020. And this would also extend to pass-throughs and sole proprietors. You can also accelerate the recovery of your AMT credits, and you can also elect to increase the limit on interest deductibility to 50% for 2019 and 2020. So as I said, for mid-size and larger employers, I'm not going to spend too much time on this. If you are a mid-size and larger employer, please contact Victoria and she can get in touch with me and I'm happy to help you out there. So for small businesses, self-employed, independent contractors, and nonprofits, a very important new program is called the Payroll Protection Program. This is a $350 billion new program which provides loans for small businesses, which generally are less than 500 employees. There are some small exceptions to that, but generally it's 500 employees, for 501c3s, for self-employed, for sole proprietors, and for independent contractors. Now, the way that you would apply for this loan is through your local bank, or a lot of credit unions are participating in this. And what's great about this is that if you use it the right way, the loan could be converted into a grant. The loan could be forgiven. And how you calculate that is you go back for 1 year and you take the average of your monthly payroll that you paid in 2019 and you multiply that by 2.5. So once you do that, you'll get the loan amount for the full amount you're able to take. After you get that loan, if you use that for payroll, if you use it for mortgage interest, if you own the building, if you use it for rent, or if you use it for utilities for a 2-month period going forward, once the loan is originated, you would have all of that loan forgiven. For the portion that's not forgiven, you would be able to take a loan, it would be treated as a normal loan. You'd get forbearance on it for 6 months. And excuse me for 1 second. Sorry, had a little issue with my son. So you get forbearance on that for 6 months, and then you would have to repay that within 2 years, and the interest rate would be 1%. But we're hoping for most of it to be forgiven for most businesses that apply for this. Now, if you have a reduction in workforce, your loan forgiveness would be reduced proportionally to that. And then also, if you cut your wages, your loan would also be cut proportionally to that. Now, the good part about that, though, is that if you brought the employees back, or if you brought the wages back up to where they typically would be, you would get full 100% forgiveness. So if you want to learn more about this Paycheck Protection Program, you can download our guide, and I've seen a lot of guides on this, and the best one I've seen, and I hate to toot our own horn, but is the document that the U.S. Chamber has put out on this. It's uschamber.com/SB-loans. Again, uschamber.com/SB-loans. And this will walk you through exactly what the eligibility is, what you would need for forgiveness, and it'll answer most of the questions on there. And once I'm done with this, I'm happy to take any questions that you have about the PPP program. Another important program that would affect small businesses that are having difficulties right now as a result of the coronavirus are these SBA Economic Injury Disaster Loans. Now, these are more of a traditional loan, like it's an actual loan that you would get at an interest rate of 3.75% for a 30-year term. What's interesting about this EIDL loan is that there's an opportunity to get a grant up to $10,000 that you would not have to repay. So when you apply for this, and instead of applying for this loan through the local bank, you just do it through SBA.gov. And when you fill out that form, there's a box that you can check which says that, are you interested in receiving an emergency loan, an emergency grant? And if you click on that, then you would be eligible to receive anywhere from $1,000 to $10,000 in a grant. Above that, you could also get, on this PowerPoint, it says you can get up to $2 million. They actually just changed that this morning. So this loan goes up from, you can get a loan for $25,000 to $35,000 with it. But if Congress approves more money for it, then it could be scaled up to be able to provide you with a greater loan. They've tried to make obtaining this loan as easy as possible. You don't need credit scores, you don't need tax returns, and typically they're not going to ask for any collateral. This will also work in conjunction with the Payroll Protection Program, as long as you're not using it for the same purposes. Like, you can't get the PPP loan out and use that for payroll, and then turn around and use the EIDL loan for payroll as well. You have to use them for separate issues. Also, if you do get that emergency grant, it would count against your forgiveness for the PPP program. So, for example, if you get this $10,000 grant, and then you get a $100,000 loan from the PPP program, you're not going to get that full forgiveness. So if you're hoping to get $100,000 of forgiveness for that PPP loan, you would only get $90,000 because this would be deducted from it. Again, this loan, you can apply for it at sba.gov. Another portion of these stimulus packages that passed earlier this year included paid sick leave for employees. And this would apply for employers with less than 500 employees would have to provide up to 10 days of paid sick leave for their employees if the leave was related to coronavirus. Now, the nice thing about this is that typically whenever Washington passes a mandate, it's an unfunded mandate, but in this case, it's a funded mandate. Washington will actually reimburse you for this leave that your employees take. So they would pay, the leave would be paid at a regular rate of $511 per day if you're taking care of yourself, and 2/3 rate with a maximum of $200 if you're caring for a family member. As I mentioned, the federal government would reimburse you for that. This leave is in addition to any other leave that an employer already provides. And the paid sick leave is not available if your employer allows you to telework. There's also paid FMLA leave from phase 2 of these stimulus bills. Employers with less than 500 employees are required to provide up to 10 weeks of paid FMLA leave if an employee needs to take care of a child due to a school or childcare closure as a result of coronavirus. Again, this is a funded mandate. The leave would be paid at 2/3 regular pay at a maximum of $200 per day and $10,000 in the aggregate. Again, if you telework, this would not apply for your business. So if you want more information on most of these topics that I covered, you can check out our website at uschamber.com. We also have a lot of resources for small businesses at uschamber.com/co. But again, I think for the Paycheck Protection Program, which is really the centerpiece of the stimulus package that passed a couple weeks ago, please go to uschamber.com/SB loans. And so with that, I know there's a lot of information here. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.